For me, actually, there is a very different story for everyone. For me, after meeting one of Adnan Oktar's followers, they directly introduced me to Adnan Oktar, and I started meeting with him. In a process that developed in this way, I got involved during my university years. In the organization, people generally talk about the girls, but there are more men. So the number of girls and boys is either equal or there are more boys. There isn't an organization made up only of girls. Boys are also targeted and reached out to, just like the girls. The same appearance applies to them as well. So, how are they chosen? This is a small organization with high maneuverability and very high operational capability. And it targets individuals it wants as followers. And they find ways to reach that girl or boy through various tricks and by using their language. For example, imagine a girl who is 19, 18, or 20 years old. Now, it doesn't happen like this. The girl doesn't just meet a young, handsome guy while walking down the street, then, okay, take my arm and let's go. There's no such simple process. I mean, there's a system seriously set up for deception here. For example, big, mature men with university degrees sit and think about how to deceive a girl. They make plans from 1 to 20, even up to 30. For example, let me explain to you through an example. There was a young girl we knew. She met someone from this organization. Later, she didn't like that person's behavior. She also found out that he was in the organization and broke up with him. She cut off contact. She says, "They left me alone." I looked at her profile. It's not the kind of profile the organization would normally leave alone. I left the organization a year and a half ago, but I'm sure they won't leave that girl alone. I asked her various things. I started showing her some pictures. "Do you know this person?" I asked, for example. She said, "I can't believe it." She said, "They moved in as my neighbors across the street 3 months ago." I asked, "Do you know this person?" They also moved into the same plaza as us, to the lower floors. She said, "We're neighbors." I started showing more pictures. Among them, there were those who met her family, those who were near her workplace. So they surrounded the girl like this. If one plan doesn't work, then another plan. If one doesn't succeed, then another plan. This can happen in any way. For example, there are people who follow girls or boys going abroad and act as if they are meeting them there. So they don't leave a person alone if they really want them. And with a seriously thought out trick, they definitely surround and win them over. But of course, this is a very slow and seriously thought out process, for example. When you first meet, you don't immediately join the organization. First, you form friendships there. Those friends gain your trust. Then those friends slowly start to isolate you from your other friends. And then gradually you start living with them. You become even more isolated from the outside world. During this time, different things happen that lock you into the organization. In other words, the organization has many deceitful methods. So, as I said, this is actually true for the majority of men as well. There are very few people who join because they want to, without being reached by others. It's an organization that deceives with such tricks. There is a group called the Sisters Group. There are very different cells. In other words, each cell operates differently from one another. There is a cell system, just like in FETÖ. As we have heard, is in other international organizations. One cell does not know what the other is doing. So there is no system where communication is freely allowed between them. There is a group called Sisters Group. There is a group called the Sisters Group. There is a different group of sympathizers. There is a group called the Brothers Group. There are different groups among girls and among boys. Of course, there is also a hierarchy system among them. Well, there are hierarchies, but based on the houses people are in, the group houses, and also based on the activities they perform. Generally, they are all connected to Adnan Oktar as the leader of the organization, but they continue as cell houses that are not very aware of each other. Therefore, while you are within the organization, your ability to gather information is limited. So, you cannot fully understand what the organization is dealing with at that moment. In other words, you are doing a job here, but you may often not know what is happening around you. He told us that he came up with such an idea in 1979 and says that he started this activity. However, As far as we understand, and as evidenced by the slowly emerging proofs, FETÖ appeared at the same time as the PKK, is foreign-driven, and is one of the pillars aimed at disrupting the moral system in Turkey and targeting many activities. Because the method of isolating people, the cell system it uses, and some of the persuasion techniques it employs are all the same. There were already news reports today. There are many connections and many similarities between them and these other organizations as well. The fact that the financial branch carried out this latest operation actually shows that they are seeking and have found an answer to the question of where the water for this mill comes from. Again, as far as I read in the press, MASEK also has a long and detailed report on this matter. And there are many crimes involved here. Money laundering, qualified fraud, international fraud. There are many issues, but we know that the organization also receives money from abroad, from various countries. And this is also very important. This organization takes everything from its followers. In other words, when a follower is there, they give everything they have to it. For example, there might be a man who joined this organization at the age of 19. But this is a large 39-year-old organization. Even after becoming a big businessman and earning a lot of money, he transfers everything to the organization without taking a single penny for himself. Girls and boys immediately transfer their real estate and all kinds of valuable items to the organization. As much as possible, many people also transfer their family's real estate and resources to the organization. Of course, there is a large system that thrives on this, a messianic organization. In other words, when we look at the current state of the organization, which has evolved significantly over its 39 years, people are drawn to it. But for example, when I joined the organization, there was no such image, of course. There was no A9 television, there was no such image, and the activities were not like this. People join here with religious feelings, and their purpose is this: I want to help spread Islam. Through this, you find yourself entering a school, a deviant sect, but it becomes a school. When you understand religion based on what is told through this, you think you are giving alms, donating money when you help there. Now, there are ways this is interpreted. One of these interpretations is to transfer everything you have. This is what the organization does. You therefore accept this person as the Mahdi, Messiah, leader, or religious leader up to a certain point. That's why you give everything you have. This is already valid for people who spend their lives in the faces of the organization, but it is also valid for people who do not spend time in the organization's houses. It even applies to sympathizers. There are hundreds of people who watch this man on television from afar and send money regularly every month, both domestically and internationally. That is already a very clear issue. In other words, the vast majority of Adnan Oktar's international connections are people who, when they come here to Turkey, appear on the A9 channel with Adnan Oktar. And we see these names there as well, from ministers to politicians, from Sanhedrin rabbis to various different educational units. So we already see these openly through their own explanations. However, this is of course a topic that has been ongoing for a long time. This is again an example of how the organization has actually evolved. In the past, while it had an anti-Israel, even anti-Jewish rhetoric, during the years I was not involved, the organization later shifted to a completely different rhetoric. There is my process of leaving the group. I mean, my escape process. I first tried to escape in 2013, but it was unsuccessful. This happened in 2013. Gradually, the clothing on the A9 channel started to change. You see, women, because previously we would go out with our collars completely closed, wearing long garments. From the outside, there was a dignified appearance, especially in the women's groups known as the Bacha group. But this also started to change. The pictures uploaded to the internet, the photos in the broadcasts, the demeanor, posture, and movements in the broadcasts. In addition, as long as I stayed within the group, confidential information that I was previously unaware of began to be disclosed to me. Among these, there were international relations that disturbed me. In my police statement, there were some issues that I was uncomfortable with. After seeing these, I wanted to leave. I tried to escape, but I couldn't succeed in 2013. I was finally able to escape again a year and a half ago. So I stayed within the organization afterwards because later on a more serious imprisonment process began for me. Don't think of it as imprisonment like being trapped within four walls. The organization has many methods of confinement. So because I tried to escape while within the organization, I was declared both a hypocrite and an agent. Therefore, my connection with everyone was already severed. While there are tracking programs on your computers and phones. You are never left alone. When you go outside, someone is always with you. So, leaving is not always as easy as people might think. Young friends don't really like it when I say this, but they should listen to their families. I mean, their family loves them very much. Well, at a certain age, I was at that age too. I am currently 36 years old, but at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, there's a philosophy of, I know everything. I don't need advice from you. It doesn't work that way. Experience is a very different kind of value. That value cannot even be bought with money, actually. That's why if families are strongly opposed to something, I want to say, they should definitely reconsider it. Also, they shouldn't hide anything from their families. Now, something like this happened to me. I am being threatened, I am being blackmailed. But if I tell my family, what I've done will be revealed. They shouldn't think like that. I mean, a person's family can help them under any circumstances. They will accept it. They should go to their families immediately. I mean, they should embrace them. This is what I want to say. This phrase about the Turkish family structure, the saying about the Turkish family structure is always at the back of our minds. We hear it but don't pay much attention to it. Indeed, the Turkish family structure is a system that protects people, especially the youth, from such organizations. We don't see many examples of this around the world. But it is actually a very protective, nurturing and compassionate structure. Young people should value it. This is truly something important